Bad luck. All of us have experienced it at some point in our lives. Although bad luck is an entirely subjective matter, the following people really take it to the next level. Here are 5 most bizarrely unlucky people to have ever lived. Frank Cilic. The bizarre story of Frank Cilic reads like something straight out of a Hollywood action movie. Cilic was born in 1929 in Croatia and became a music teacher. His rise to fame came about his uncanny ability to defy death. His incredible story began on a cold January day in 1962. Cilic was on a train traveling from Sarajevo to Dubrovnik. Halfway through the 150-mile journey, the train suddenly derailed and crashed into the icy river below, killing 17 passengers. Despite a broken arm, hypothermia and other injuries, Cilic managed to swim to safety. A year later, while on a plane flying to Rijeka from Zagreb, a door blew away, causing many passengers to be sucked out of the plane, including Cilic. 19 people died, but not Cilic. He was thrown clear of the crash and landed in a haystack, only suffering minor injuries. Understandably, that was his first and only plane ride. 3 years later in 1966, a bus he was traveling in skidded into a river, drowning 4 people. Cilic swam to safety with only cuts and bruises. By now, Cilic's friends had stopped visiting him due to his bad luck, but he wasn't done defying death. In 1970, while driving on the motorway, his car caught fire. He was fortunate enough to escape before the fuel tank exploded. 3 years later in another car, a faulty fuel pump spewed petrol over the hot engine of his car, causing flames to shoot through the air conditioning vents, completely singeing his hair, but he was otherwise unharmed. In 1995, while crossing a road, Cilic was hit by a bus, but managed to walk away with only minor injuries. A year later, he was driving on a mountain road when he turned a corner to see a truck coming straight towards him. Cilic avoided a head-on collision by driving into a guardrail. His car crashed through the guardrail and fell down a 300-feet cliff, but he was able to jump away from the car at the last second, managing to hold on to a tree as he watched his car hit the bottom and explode. After defying death a mind-boggling 7 times, things took a turn for the better. In 2003, just after his 73rd birthday, Cilic bought his first ever lottery ticket and won over $1 million. Depending on one's perspective, Frank Cilic can either be the unluckiest or luckiest person on the planet. Roy Sullivan. The number 7 is often considered a lucky number, but not for Roy Sullivan. The Shenandoah National Park Ranger was struck by lightning on 7 different occasions and survived all of them. For this reason, he was given the nickname Human Lightning Rod. His first encounter with being struck by lightning came in April 1942. Sullivan was stationed at a newly constructed fire watchtower when a thunderstorm blew in. As the tower was new, there were no lightning rods installed. It was hit 7 to 8 times, and because of this, there was fire inside the tower. Sullivan decided to get away from the tower, but only made it a few feet away before being struck. The lightning burned a half-inch strip along his right leg, knocked his big toe off, and blew a hole in the sole of his shoes. Almost 30 years later in 1969, he was struck by lightning a second time while driving his truck on a mountain road. What's unusual about this is vehicles usually protect its occupants by acting as a Faraday cage if struck by lightning. However, because his windows were open, the lightning bounced off a nearby tree and went inside the vehicle. As a result, Sullivan was knocked unconscious and had his eyebrows and eyelashes burned off. His hair was also set on fire. A year later, while in his front yard, Sullivan was struck for the 3rd time. The lightning hit a nearby power transformer and then bounced to his left shoulder, burning it. Strike number 4 came in 1972. Sullivan was working inside a ranger station when he got hit, and his hair was set on fire. He ran to the bathroom but couldn't fit his head under the tap, so used a wet towel to extinguish the fire. At this point, he started believing that some unknown force was trying to destroy him and began fearing death, and he started carrying a can of water with him in case his hair gets set on fire again. In 1973, while he was out on patrol, Sullivan saw storm clouds approaching. Not wanting to be struck again, he quickly drove away. Once he felt he was safe, Sullivan got out of his truck to have a look. Big mistake. A lightning bolt struck Sullivan and set his hair on fire, as well as knocking off his shoes. Luckily, he had the can of water to extinguish the fire on his head. Then in 1976, while he was walking along a park trail, he was struck again. Sullivan suffered ankle injuries, but this was the last straw for him. He retired 5 months later. Unfortunate for Sullivan, the lightning found him once again. June 25, 1977, Sullivan was trout fishing when he was struck for the 7th time. The lightning burned his chest and stomach, and of course, his hair was set on fire again. Sullivan made his way back to the car, but not before a black bear tried to steal his fish. The odds of being hit by lightning in your lifetime is approximately 1 in 12,000. The probability of being hit 7 times would be 1 in 12 octillion. After being struck by lightning so many times, people would actively avoid Sullivan because of their fear of being struck by lightning. As he once recalled, "For instance, I was walking with the chief ranger one day when lightning struck in the distance. The chief said, 'I'll see you later.'" Poor Sullivan. Anne Hodges. The case of Anne Hodges is a truly bizarre one and received plenty of worldwide attention. On a sunny afternoon in Silicoga, Alabama in 1954, Anne Hodges was sleeping on her couch. All of a sudden, a bright light sliced across the sky, leaving a trail of smoke and cloud. Unbeknown to Hodges, a meteorite had broken through the atmosphere and fragmented into smaller pieces, one of which was heading straight for her. A softball-sized fragment broke through the roof of the house, bounced off her radio, and hit Hodges in the hip and hand. Initially, Hodges and her mother thought children were the culprits, but upon going outside, they saw the black cloud in the sky and realized it was a meteorite. Hodges was then examined by physician Moody Jacobs, who determined that although her hip and hand was badly bruised, there was no serious damage. In the aftermath, the meteorite was confiscated by the Silicoga police chief, who handed it over to the United States Air Force. Hodges and her landlord then claimed the rock, but there was a dispute as to who the rock belonged to. In the end, not wanting to deal with public attention and the stress of the dispute, Hodges donated the rock to the Alabama Museum of Natural History in 1956. The meteorite was named the Silicoga meteorite, but is also commonly called the Hodges meteorite because of the fragment that struck Hodges. The odds of being struck by a meteorite is 1 in 1.6 million, and the Silicoga meteorite was the first verified extraterrestrial object to hit and injure a human being. Jason and Jenny Cairns Lawrence. Most of us know John McClane, a fictional character played by Bruce Willis in the Die Hard movies. In these movies, McClane deals with various threats, including terrorist attacks. Meet Jason and Jenny Cairns Lawrence, a young couple that's been attacked by terrorists more times than John McClane. On the surface, they look just like any other couple. They like to live life to the fullest, and they love traveling. However, it would seem that wherever they go, trouble follows. Their first ill-fated trip was to New York City. Jason, a sales agent with a metal plating company, and Jenny, a laboratory worker, were sightseeing near the World Trade Center. And the date? September 11th, 2001. Their sightseeing was interrupted when hijackers flew into the World Trade Center. The young couple managed to survive, but an estimated 3,000 people perished in the attack. For their next holiday, the couple wanted to go somewhere that's unlikely to get attacked and decided London would be their next destination. Unfortunate for them, their arrival on 7th of July 2005 coincided with the deadly London bombings. 4 British suicide bombers detonated bombs aboard London Underground trains as well as a bus in Tavistock Square. 52 people were killed and over 700 more were injured in the attacks. By now, Jason and Jenny had already been in 2 locations targeted by terrorists, and they were seriously questioning their choices of holiday destinations. Not wanting to give up on traveling, they decided to try again. This time, they chose Mumbai, India. In November 2008, while the young couple was in the Calabar area in the exotic Indian city of Mumbai, they were faced with yet another terrorist attack. The 2008 Mumbai attacks lasted 4 days, where a Pakistani terrorist group carried out 12 coordinated shootings and bombings, killing 164 people and wounding at least 300. Fortunately, Jason and Jenny were uninjured. In the end, the couple believes that it's all just coincidence. Does bad luck really come in threes? You decide. Tsutomu Yamaguchi. The case of Tsutomu Yamaguchi is perhaps the epitome of bad luck. Born in 1916, Yamaguchi joined Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in the 1930s, and in the summer of 1945, he went on a 3-month-long business trip to Hiroshima. On the fateful day of August 6, 1945, as he was preparing to leave the city with colleagues, Yamaguchi realized he had forgotten his travel pass and returned to his workplace to retrieve it. At 8:15 AM, he was walking towards his workplace when the American bomber Enola Gay dropped the Little Boy atomic bomb 3 kilometers away near the center of the city. Yamaguchi recalls seeing the bomber before there was a great flash in the sky and he was blown over. The explosion ruptured his eardrums, blinded him temporarily, and left him with serious burns. After spending the night in an air raid shelter, Yamaguchi returned home, to Nagasaki. A few days later, Yamaguchi was in the office of his supervisor describing the blast in Hiroshima when there was a distinct sound that few people on Earth except Yamaguchi would have recognized. That of another atomic bomb. The American bomber Boxcar dropped the Fat Man atomic bomb over the city of Nagasaki, and again Yamaguchi was less than 3 kilometers away from the blast. Fortunately, he was unhurt by the explosion. Later in life, Yamaguchi became anti-nuclear and was a vocal proponent of nuclear disarmament. Hiroshima and Nagasaki remains the only 2 cities to have ever been hit by nuclear weapons, and Tsutomu Yamaguchi remains the only person to have been officially recognized as surviving both explosions. So these are 5 bizarrely unlucky people to have ever lived. If you're ever going through a rough time, just take a deep breath and look at the big picture. Someone else in the world might be going through something far worse. If you enjoyed this video, consider dropping a like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out some of my other videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.